Okay, so the project we're working on has to do with a cookbook that is going to be created for the RSS 50th anniversary. And and so we get to help illustrate it. And if you want, you can also contribute recipes, you can contribute stories. And I didn't mean for that to, oops, here we go. And so next Tuesday, both online or in person, if you want to come to RSS, they're going to have all kinds of fun events. And here's a little list of them. Just move it out of the way so I can read it. I've got something that like blocking the first one that I can't read. Okay. Bake sale. Okay, that's what was being hidden. Food, poetry, and story jam. A blindfolded taste testing, cupcake decorating, and whatever else they're going to come up with. So that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and maybe we'll get more information when Barbara comes on. And you can click there. I'm clicking in the wrong places. You can click here to register for anything online. So here it is all again, maybe a little bit easier to read. The food, poetry, and story jam will be at 11. And if you have any topic on food, a memory, a short story, a poem, a recollection, anything, they would love to hear about it. And maybe you'll be encouraged to put it in writing and contribute to the cookbook. So I just think it's a lot of fun, but we're going to help illustrate it. So last week, we had images of people standing and either preparing food or interacting with food in some way. And I asked you to imagine your own person that you want to put in there, whether it's you or whether it's a grandmother or a mom or a dad or an uncle, whoever, whatever food story you had. And you all came up with wonderful, wonderful illustrations. I hope I'm going in the right direction. Yes, I am. Okay. So Diana from this, let's see, from the one from the back, which is not on here. Okay, we had one of a woman cooking from the back. And Diana, and she looked nothing like this. And Diana put her own kind of Donna Reed mom with, look at that waist, into the scene. And then she changed it to pizza. She changed it to a stove with a hood on it. She just, made it very personal to her. And for the cookbook, you might want to just check, all of you, not just Diana, but all of you, check that there's enough contrast, because by the time it gets photographed and then put into the printer, we don't want everything too pale. We want it to really show up. So if you start like this, you might want to add a few more darks here and there, either with watercolor pencils or with ink, or just by darkening some of the areas of the watercolor so that things really stand out. But photograph it this way, keep a photograph of it before, because sometimes we overdo it and it's hard to pull back. But that will help in, reproducing and getting your image to show the best. Here's one, Muriel, great, wonderful sketch here. And this is from one of her travels, and eating with people, it looks like in maybe on the floor or on a platform, because the two people in front look like they're sitting up on something, but the people in the back are clearly on, a blanket or carpet or something for eating. So straight black and white will photograph nicely and work really well as an illustration. You can always add color. Again, you might want to put in both formats when you submit these, like put in the black and white photo and then have a photo if you have decided to add some color. And today we're going to do some drawing again, and I'm going to push it in another direction to draw with blue and or brown and or blue, just to give kind of a different look, like a sepia tone. And also, if you think about it, blue and brown complement each other, because brown is really like a dark orange, which is the opposite of blue, but it's taken down a notch. And so these two colors together when you sketch, because you get warm and cool. So you would use, you know, the brown side for the highlighted areas and the blue side for cooler tones, for shadows. And so that'll work out really well. So we're going to keep sketching. So here's the rough plan. So in case you wanted the December slides for whatever reason, those are here at the top, and that Boston Fern demo that was on the last day of the year.
So I looked at
last
the
day that we were,
program for, you know, online, because I'm homebound senior. And I saw that I need to send an email, which I did, to S. Silverman at riverdaley.org, which I did. And that's for the pantry in January.
no, Helen, this has nothing to do with the
It's for
Riverdale
the
Y. This is
Metropolitan Hungry or something or other, you know. I did.
okay.
So I will, you know, my caretaker will take me at that time, and I don't want to be, you know,
Okay.
upset and disappointed that something went wrong with you know,
Right.
with the-
Okay, Helen, I can't, are you talking
Let me
to
just see if
us
I wrote
or
it down.
you're
Just
on
one
the
second. Let
phone?
me get my glasses.
All right, maybe she's on the phone. I'm gonna mute her
January.
because I think it's a completely different topic. Okay. All right. And if I misunderstood, I apologize. Okay, so here's our plan. On January 4th, last week, we did standing figures. And see where it says, and food. See where it says click here for recording? Well, it's not on there yet, but it will be. I'm going to have this recording from last week available here. So I'll be where it says click for recording will actually be a link. And then the same for today, seated figures in food, I'll have click here for recording. So that if you missed any of it, or got called away or couldn't come. So for this project, I want all the recordings available, and I'm going to have Barbara have them available for us. So then next week, I'll be at RSS. It says TSS because that's a typo. Let me change it immediately. It lets me. Okay, let's change that TSS to what it's supposed to say, RSS. Okay. And then this, of course, is not active yet. Okay, I'll be there, but we'll still be online. And we're going to talk more about finishing touches so we can kind of look at what you've been working on, and we will do a little bit of still life because that's food. And so there'll be an art lesson. I'll be there in person if you would like to come. If you feel like bringing your acrylics, that's okay, or watercolors, whatever you want to bring. We're going to be in a different location than we usually are. They're putting us upstairs. So they'll let you know when you get there where it is. I'm not even sure where it is, but I think it's in by Audrey's office, if anyone knows where that is. Okay, then the following week, I thought it would be fun to do dancing figures with food because this comes up in art history quite often, especially in the ancient world. And so I thought we would have a good time with that, and it can kind of almost turn into a pattern, or it could be like a border across the bottom of a page or something just kind of fun. And it gives us figure practice, of course, and we always want that. And I'm trying to let Etty in. There we go. And then February, oops, this is very touchy today. And then the first week in February, oh my goodness. The first week in February, Tabitha will be here. I will not be here, but Tabitha will show you tips on photographing, lighting, focusing, whatever you need help with, cropping, maybe adjusting the color, and how to send it in an email. And so that'll be helpful because all of these have to be in, excuse me, by the end of March. And so that gives us a little leeway that in case on February 1st you're still having troubles, you could come to the center and Tabitha will help you. So, okay, so that's the plan. So today we're gonna,
April,
yes,
just
yeah,
2 questions. Yeah,
sure.
this is Emma. So
Hi,
on
Emma.
April 1st, which is a Thursday, you will not have class
No, I
online?
don't know. I haven't gotten to April yet. This is February 1st. Can you see
I'm
this?
sorry, February 1st. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
February
Okay.
1st.
I will not be here. It is did I get that right? That it's a Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that part's good. Okay. Okay. So yes, there's a class. There's an online class. I will not be here, but Tabitha will help everyone. Oh, Emma, your hair looks so cute. Tabitha will help you with photographing and cropping and adjusting the color. I notice when I photograph my own artwork, if it's on white paper, sometimes I photograph it even when the light is good, the paper's not white. And so I adjust the contrast. And so Tabitha will help you with things like that so that your best, the best look of your artwork will shine. Does that answer your question, Emma?
I mean, yes, that answers that question. I'm sorry, I lost the other one. It will come
And
to
you
me.
know what we're working on. We're working on a cookbook
Yeah.
and we're working on illustrations. And then if you have any food stories, poems, anything. And Ellen, I don't know if you're here, but your assignment is write a poem, because I know that you can just like that come up with one. And if there's anybody else like that, start writing. Okay, so all of these recordings will be available. Okay, as we go. So today we're going to work on seated figures. And Emma, if you think of your other question, just jump right in. So I found some pieces from different time periods. And again, we're using these so that we kind of can get the perspective of the table and we can kind of see the proportion of the person. And but you're going to put your own person in there. And of course, this is a nice hand position for someone who's about to take a bite. And let's talk about this hand for a second, because it's super, super. Let me find the little stylus. So this is a great example of drawing a hand that can be super helpful. So I want to point a couple of things out on that. So I'll draw with pink on top of the hand. So so on a hand, you want to notice each of our flanges as like a little box. And if you do, you'll get some really good hands. Now, only the top parts of the box shows on this. Oh, this is too fat of a line. Let me get a skinnier line. Okay. So this hand is going to be super easy to draw if you can, if you like see the boxes. And in this case, sort of a flat box. That last one, not so hot. Okay. My drawing instrument is not super precise. Okay. And then, of course, get those shapes. And then this part's in shadow. Shadow, shadow. And just by getting your strokes like that, you're really going to get a little bit of the thumb shows, of course. And then, of course, it's somewhat foreshortened. And then, the wrist, back that way. So, and then, of course, the sleeve. So I left out this part here, and I've got something in the way here that part of the thumb is showing. So if you can see the hand like that, here's a good example over here of the box where we can maybe see the side. My drawing instrument, again, move this out of the way. So here on this one, we get to see the side of the box. So it's like a little box in perspective. And the same with this part. And the box comes down like that. So here we mostly just see the top. Here, mostly the top, but on this first one, we get to see, you know, the top and the sides of the box. And if you see that, it'll help you draw it because there'll be light and shadow. Like here's one, and here, you know, so these other ones we're pretty much just seeing, you know, the top of the box. I know it looks a little skeletal, but this is like super important to understand there. And then the same on the thumb. Here's the top, and then there's the side of the box coming down. So that can be helpful. So I'm giving you all of these examples so that you can do some drawing practice, and it'll just kind of help you with proportion, I think. But do put your own people in here. So that's what we want. Let me get out of this. Okay. Oops, the did not go away. We don't want that. Okay. Okay. Henry Ossawa Tanner, he's like the first African-American who got, and this is done in the late 1800s, who got international fame from his work. He worked in Philadelphia with Thomas Akins, and who was the director of the Philadelphia School of Art. And Akins is a really interesting character, very progressive for his age. He made sure that women could study there and that they could study figure drawing, and because otherwise that was forbidden. And then he advised Tanner that, you know, he understood, he saw that Tanner was coming up against a lot of prejudice in showing his work in Philadelphia and in this country. And he said, you know, if you go abroad, I think, you know, you'll be really well received. And he was. He went to Paris, he went to Morocco, he's got, his career just took off. So he became an internationally renowned artist. But don't you love this? That, you know, we see this perspective, we see these two ages. So if you too have like a story of maybe two generations that you want to tell, this might be able to help you with the positioning of the figures. And then again, you put your own figures in there. It's just such a great example. This one's a lot of fun. Completely different style, isn't it? Of a group of people eating. So again, you put your own people in there, and you can turn this into a drawing. I could picture this whole drawing in blue and brown, and so that would be a fun one to work from. Here's another, just isn't it beautiful? And Soroya, what he does with light, you know, it's just quite amazing. So, and clearly they're eating outside, and all these beautiful shadows, feast for the eyes. If you have a story about a busy kitchen, here's a room set up for you. I'm sorry, I don't know who the artist is. It kind of looks like Grant Wood, but I don't think it is. And you put your own people in there with their clothes and whatever kitchen that, you know, you have in mind, and leave out figures, add figures, you know. So Norman Rockwell, a lot of fun. So here's a seated figure, two different seated figures eating, and thought that could be super helpful, especially when it comes to hands, if you need help with that. And it doesn't have to be up close. If you have a story or a memory about eating outside at a night cafe, for instance, you know, the figures can be suggested, and maybe it's more about the mood of the night, but that there are plenty of people eating, or, you know, whatever it is. Another famous work. I'm trying to show you wonderful famous works here that may or may not inspire you to work on something for this. Seated figures eating. I love this one. One of my favorite artists, Carrie James Marshall. And this one's a lot of fun. So if you have a story about food and romance, maybe something like this. Put your own self in there or whomever. Parties. Party memories. Shopping. Isn't this one fun? I think it's all collage. And that collage counts for this cookbook. This can be reproduced easily. So if you love working with collage and you want to do something, don't copy this exactly. You need to make it your own story, but just as a little bit of inspiration. We'll be working on still life. This would go more in the realm of still life, as a painting, but I thought the kitchen setup on this might be helpful. Maybe you're still working on your standing figure from last week. It's a wonderful piece. For a story about cooking. More cooking. I love seeing the oven, don't you? It's like great. Seated figure eating. So I thought we would work with seated figures today. This is a nice perspective of like an adult looking down and the child is small and the adult is standing, and this perspective of looking down. So you want to think about what perspective. You could take a photograph of your own kitchen. You can use a family photo that you may have from eating, and then put a little caption with it, and that's an entry for the cookbook. There might be a story about setting the table even. All these different perspectives. So I'm hoping that one of these will inspire you a bit. And I thought we would do a little sketching, and I'm going to go back to the one of a lot of people at the table, and that we would do a little sketch from this. So I'm thinking to work with blue and brown. So I'm going to highlight my camera and just to talk about this blue and brown kind of an idea. Okay, so what I've got is a brown watercolor pencil. This brown happens to be Derwent watercolor. Is that in focus? No, there it is. Derwent watercolor. It's a nice brown. I've also got the IKEA kids pencils that are water soluble, very nice, and an IKEA in blue. And I love the blue and brown combination. And so the idea is that let's just say let's go back to our standing figure for a second. That if I draw my standing figure like we did before, we did Oscar last week, Oscar holding something, so I'll just stick with Oscar in brown here. I'm doing one side in brown, and then I'm doing the other side in blue. And then you automatically get this feeling, and I tried to give Oscar a little bit of a tilted head this time. You automatically get the feeling of light and shadow. So even if I just spray it with water, it starts to melt a little bit and turn into watercolor. And then I've got this, warm and cool. So it's a really nice combo to work with. And then I'm just going to use my brush to sort of pick up a little bit. And if I'm sort of sketching a table here, I'll do the same thing. So I've got this long table, and I'm going to have people sitting at it. Maybe I would have the light hitting on these people. So now I'm trying the other brown. So people of different sizes here sitting at the table. And they're getting bigger as they come up, and then you have to put them in the chair maybe. And just try and get the proportion. Maybe a little taller. And you can just keep making changes. And if you work really loose like this, then it's easier to make changes. So I keep making the table taller to accommodate. So I started out there, and then I thought, oh, that won't work, So, and they're kind of crowded in there, like what happens. So this person's hanging off the edge. If I didn't want them hanging off the edge, I could just bring the table closer, and I can definitely, disguise that. So the nice part about using watercolor pencils is you can make these changes. And I kind of like that loose anyway. So then again, on the right side of each figure, I can get a little more of the blue shadow. And then over here, I do the same thing. Get the other people. Using the brown, I meant to use the blue, but that's okay. I have a couple different browns going. It's okay too. So you need heads, you need shoulders, you need different size people. Like maybe this is a little guy sitting here. Maybe it's a high chair. Person. And then maybe someone at the head of the table, maybe a little taller than that. And then, whatever it is on the table, whatever the plates are and the dishes and the this and the that and all of that. But this blue and brown is just such a great combo. And, keep it loose when you're starting. At some point, you might want the floor line. Whatever else is happening, doorway or whatever it is. Maybe this is a wall that goes this way, and you want to get rid of this. So then, we'll get rid of it. We'll just watercolor it out. I can add watercolor to get rid of it even more. So I think you get the idea and how beautiful blue and brown can work. If you're working on a still life, the same kind of thing, whatever it is that you're making. Let's say it's a melon or something. Try and get it a little bit textured. Like a cantaloupe. Do better if I had one in front of me, but you'll get the idea. That if you think about, where your light and shadow is, even though the cantaloupe is not blue, blue darkens brown and brown darkens blue. So I can sort of get just that little bit of shadow in there, and then maybe the cast shadow will be more blue. And then I can dip in water, or like today, I'm just into spraying and keeping it loose that way. So this blue and brown, I'd love you to play with it a little bit. And if you're using watercolor that has, in tubes, it would be like a burnt umber or a burnt sienna. And the burnt sienna is more of this reddish brown. And the burnt umber is more like this other pencil I have, which is the darker side of this. See this, it's like a different brown than this one. And then blue, if you would be an ultramarine blue rather than like not a cerulean, not a manganese, not a phthalo, not anything that has any, because it'll go green, anything that has the least bit of turquoise look in it will make it go a little bit green. But if you stick to that ultramarine or cobalt blue with either a burnt sienna or a burnt umber, it's just a great way to have a limited palette that shows warm and cool. And oops, someone's trying to get in. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording and we're going to look at maybe some things that you did last week. And oh, I didn't give you a chance to draw yet. Okay, let's do that next. Let's go back. That's what we were going to do. Okay, then we'll share. Okay, so let's draw this for, let's just see if you can get a rough sketch in 10 minutes. Okay, just to practice the blue and the brown and just to kind of practice proportion. So that's why I gave you a little demo. I remember now. And then we'll do share outs of last week, this week, ideas, whatever it is that you want to do. So I'll mute myself so that you can work in quiet.